Okay, it's the 24th of January 2026 and the second big update for Hytale has just been released to the live branch, and here's an introduction from Simon himself. Hytale's second update is now live, another quick patch with lots of fixes, new content and features requested by the community. PSA, the Grimoire is just an item that drops from the big skeleton that you might have seen already. Not related to the future magic system we will be working on in a future update. The minions are a bit janky, but hey, it's early access, let's have fun and not worry about it just yet. That's how I see Hytale's future development. Let's have fun and experiment a bit from time to time. That's how Hytale was born. Just a bunch of devs having a great time. I want to add more interesting drops in the world, especially from chests, so this could be a fun way for us to experiment and make exploration much more fun. Finding books, scrolls, potions and items that bring a lot more excitement rather than just materials and equipment. That being said, production is ramping up as we work on several updates in parallel, and we will put update 3 into pre-release next week. We will give a bit more time in pre-release to let modders and servers adapt this time around. This one should be a bit smaller as we are trying to offset the pre-release and release schedule to be more predictable. We will share more details next week. Moving on to the actual patch notes, I won't read them word for word because you can do that in detail in your own time, but just to pull out a few key points here that are quite interesting. So first of all, we've got cosmetics and customization, where there's a few new mask types, mouth shapes. They've corrected a few hairstyles as well in there. Probably the most noticeable point is there's now toggleable armour pieces, so you can change the visibility on them at your leisure. So I'm looking at you, Copper Helmet. If you don't like the look of that, you can turn it off and show your glorious hairstyle or whatever hat you chose or headpiece. And it's nice that this option is now available because you can show off your avatar designs as you design them initially, so that adds a bit more variety to how your character looks. And they've also improved how capes look when running, because I think they were a bit janky before. Gameplay and balance, there's a few quite interesting points in this one. So first of all, you've got a new book or tomb that drops from Praetorian skeletons that raises skeleton minions to fight for you. It's a bit janky, as Simon said at the moment. You know, it's a nice early look into what kind of items they're thinking of adding in the game, and when they're polished up they'll be pretty good. And then another key point here is the mining changes. So rather than all the pickaxes being the same other than their durability, now they mine at different speeds. So for example, if you have the most basic pickaxe, it may take about 3 hits or so to mine copper. If you use a copper pickaxe, it'll take 2, and so on and so forth for the higher tier pickaxes. So it's not just about durability now, they actually speed up your mining ability. And as it says in the patch notes there, adamantite can only be mined with thorium or cobalt pickaxes. So again, there's a bit more progression there now, which is nice. They've buffed polar bears. Okay, there's also decorative light recipes, and another big change is they've made medium hide easier to find because bison, boars, cows, horses and warthogs now drop this instead. And probably the last key point in this section is the magma toad, which was a bit of an annoying mob for many people, has had its tongue damage significantly reduced, and he's had a few more attacks added between the tongue attack, a headbutt ability, and I think this just leads to a less frustrating experience, a more varied fight against that kind of mob, so that's good to see. World generation. World Gen V2 has now been prepared for public documentation to help modders, and there's a few new instances where World Gen V2 is now being used. It seems to be more on the creative side of things, but it's nice to see this is starting to creep into the game, even if only in small pieces at the moment. And the other noticeable change in this section is they've now refactored where the ore placement is in all zones, so you will need to explore new zones in your existing save if you want to see these, but hopefully this will lead to more ore generally and better disbursement of it. Farming. So there's a few changes to how eternal crops no longer break from weapon damage, tilled soil lasts longer, and the decay under fully grown crops for soil has been fixed. You can now hold torches in your offhand while using the hoe, so that's good for those nighttime farmers, whoever they are. And the other significant change here is the hoe tool. So before you had a hoe which was quite weak, it didn't have much durability, and to upgrade you had to get quite high in the farming bench tiers. Now they've reduced reduced it significantly, so it costs less to make, and you can get the copper hoe at tier 2 instead of tier 4, iron at tier 4 instead of tier 8, and thorium has been added at tier 6, so that's a much nicer upgrade for you earlier on in the game. So that's a nice pain point with farming reduced. UI and UX. So there's quite a lot to go over here, but there's only a few points really I want to mention. So first of all, there's quite a few changes made to tooltips. There's improvements on the visibility of your active slot on your hotbar. So on some certain situations, some landscapes, biomes, it's harder to see, so they've made that more visible. There's some brush changes. This seems to be more for the creative side of things. They've also updated the inventory interaction update. So now you can use hotkeys Q, E, R and T to quickly move items around your inventory into storage. So that's nice to have to quickly move things around rather than having to click on the interface, if that's how you like to play. They've also added an FPS counter overlay, so you don't have to rely on third-party FPS counters or I think it was the performance monitor hotkey in game. You can now just add that via the settings menu for a quick FPS display. They've also made various improvements to the player markers on the map. And if I can pronounce this properly, they've also added an ophidiophobia mode. So basically that gets rid of the snake model and replaces it with a hat worm, so some kind of worm type mob for those that don't like to see snakes in the game. Audio and visual effects. So they've added all missing basic Rex sound. So I'm guessing this is the T-Rex style mob that was added not too long ago. Updated the bone sounds when dragging and dropping from the inventory. Fixed a bug with Howling Sands cave track, and updated all food particle tints. Bug fixes, tech and stability. So without going into too much detail, there's various server update fixes. So if you're a server owner of Hytale, then these will make updating the server, shutting it down, that sort of thing, much nicer. There are several fixes to shadow rendering problems. A couple more points worth mentioning is there was a bed respawning issue when you moved too far away from your bed location. So the game basically unloaded all the chunks in that area, so when you died, tried to respawn, you received an error, and oftentimes you'd just be sent back to your initial first spawn point when you came into the game. So it's nice that they've fixed this. I had this problem myself and it's quite annoying. It's good to see that one's being fixed. An interesting little change here with refilling water containers. So now you don't have to point at a water block, you just have to be near water and it'll just fill the container from the nearest water block. So that's a minor but still quite a nice little quality of life change there. And finally, there's a few fixes to player marker issues to round off the patch notes. So for me, I think the highlights of this patch are probably the mining changes, adding the pickaxe changes and redistribution of the ores. Hopefully that leads to a more balanced distribution of where you find the ores and in more abundance. And the medium hide change is very nice, making that much easier to farm than before. And also the hoe tools, making the tiers of those much earlier to progress, so you get much more durability out of the tool now, so that's very nice as well. And finally, I'd say being able to hide your armor pieces as and when is such a great change in terms of just having more control over what shows. You don't like a certain piece of armor, just hide it, or you want to show a particular piece of your character's base, customization and outfit you've selected, then now you've got the option to do that, and that's half of the fun of the game, is liking how your character actually looks. So great changes there. So all in all, a nice little patch, and let's look forward to patch number 3, which is hopefully going into testing next week. So as always, thank you very much and stay tuned for more updates and videos. Bye bye for now.